Before this video gets started, I want to let you guys know I do have a Patreon. I've had it for a while. I've just never really advertised it all that much, but I wanted to start getting more use out of it and doing some monthly giveaways. And if you guys are interested in any things on the screen right there, I'll leave a link in the description to my Patreon. You guys can sign up. Never feel like you have to. I just thought I'd advertise it in case you guys are interested in any of these perks. In today's video, we're going to be changing it up a bit, and instead of ranking the top 10 picks, I'm just going to be giving you guys my top 10 players from the 2010 NHL draft. Remember, this is just my opinion, so you guys don't have to freak out if the players you like aren't on here. And for all you Leafs fans, I'm not including goaltenders, so don't be surprised when Frederik Andersen is not on this list. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Here is a look at how the original 2010 NHL draft top 10 went. Taylor Hall first to the Oilers, second to the Bruins, Erica Branson third to the Panthers, Ryan Johansen fourth to the Columbus Blue Jackets, Nino Niederreiter fifth to the New York Islanders, Brett Connolly went sixth to the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jeff Skinner went seventh to the Hurricanes, Mikael Granlund went eighth to the Minnesota Wild, Burmistrov went ninth to the Thrashers, and Dylan McGrath went 10th to the New York Rangers. At number 10, I have Brendan Gallagher of the Montreal Canadiens. He was drafted 147th overall, and he's played in 406 games and has 118 goals, 121 assists, and 239 total points. And in his playoff career, he's played in 40 games and has 10 goals and 11 assists for 21 points. What a steal the Montreal Canadiens got with Brendan Gallagher. When I was watching him at the World Junior Tournament before his draft year, I believe it was 2009, I was really impressed by him, and I'm surprised he went this late in the draft, but obviously the Montreal Canadiens are very happy that he dropped to them 147th overall. He plays with grit. Sometimes he crosses the line a little bit and pisses the other team off, but that's just the way he plays, and he has tremendous offensive skill, and he's coming off arguably the best season of his career this year, posting 30 goals. So Brendan Gallagher really has been fantastic for the Montreal Canadiens so far, and that's why I have him in the top 10. At number 9 is Mikael Granlund of the Minnesota Wild, and I forgot to tell you guys, I'm basing this list off of who I would want to have right now, as opposed to in previous lists ranking the top 10, it was based on overall career, but this is just who I would rather have at this point in time. So he was drafted 9th overall by the Minnesota Wild. He's played in 398 games and has 78 goals and 190 assists for 268 total points, and in 39 playoff games, he has 8 goals and 13 assists for 21 points, and he's been a huge part of the Minnesota Wild's success getting into the playoffs these past couple of seasons. Obviously, they haven't really been able to do much damage once they have gotten into the playoffs, and I really hope that does change. I want to see Minnesota do well because I think all the players on this team deserve to, and I want to see Mikko Koivu get a good run at a cup. And Mikael Granlund is an awesome two-way forward, and he plays the game so hard. He's always in there forechecking, and he's a great playmaker as well. He's just a very well-rounded player, and the Minnesota Wild, I think, are very happy with getting him 9th overall. So I have him ranked at 9th, and that is where he was drafted. So I think Granlund has just been fantastic, and I still think he's a very good player. At number 8 is Cam Fowler of the Anaheim Ducks, originally taken 12th overall by the Ducks. He's played in 561 games, has 53 goals, 196 assists for 249 total points, and in 62 playoff games, he has 6 goals and 27 assists for 33 points, and he really has been the best defenseman on this team for many years now, him and Hampus Lindholm both. And Cam Fowler, I think, is really underrated. He's one of the best offensive defensemen, and he can still play shutdown game against the other team's top line. He's fantastic on the power play. It really does suck that he was injured for the playoffs this season, as maybe there would have been a different outcome and the Anaheim Ducks wouldn't have gotten swept if they did have their top defenseman in the lineup. But he's been so reliable since being drafted, and he's one of my favorite defensemen in the league. I don't think he gets enough recognition because, I don't know, I feel like when you think of Anaheim, you only think of Getzlaf and Perry and Kessler and guys like that. So I really am high on Cam Fowler, and I think he's just been fantastic since being drafted 12th by the Anaheim Ducks. At number 7 is Jeff Skinner of the Carolina Hurricanes. He was drafted 7th overall. He's played in 579 games and has 204 goals and 175 assists for 379 total points, and he's yet to play in a playoff game. I'm sure Jeff Skinner does want that to change, and it could change this summer, as a lot of contending teams are probably interested in Jeff Skinner, as really no one on the Carolina Hurricanes right now are untouchable, and they're probably going to have a fire sale this summer, but Jeff Skinner has been really good since being drafted 7th overall. He's been a pure sniper. Obviously, he has more total goals than assists. Throughout his career, he's kind of had a down season the past 2 years, but I really still think he's a fantastic player, and I think he's kind of just getting sick of playing for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I really do hope to see him in a different team's uniform next season on a team that he can have a run at the playoffs, because we've never seen Jeff Skinner play a playoff game yet, and in 579 games, that must be getting tiring, and I'm sure Jeff Skinner certainly does want to compete for a Stanley Cup. Carolina is getting better, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jeff Skinner, but I think he's been very good so far throughout his career, and he's one of the more underrated goal scorers in the league. At number 6 is Ryan Johansen of the Columbus Blue Jackets, drafted by the Blue Jackets, currently playing for the Nashville Predators. He was a 4th overall pick, 512 total games played, 116 goals, 226 assists for 342 total points, and he's played in 47 playoff games and has 14 goals and 27 assists for 41 points. So he's a very solid player in the playoffs. It does suck that he was injured for the Stanley Cup Finals back against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we could have seen a different outcome there if Nashville had their number 1 center, Ryan Johansen. He's very good. He's a good defensive forward as well, and I think that's kind of an underrated attribute to his game, as not many people really know him as a defensive forward. Obviously, he's now in Nashville, involved in that trade with Seth Jones, and I really do think that trade worked out well for both teams. Seth Jones has been fantastic for Columbus, and Nashville did really need a number 1 forward, and Ryan Johansen has been good for them so far, and he really is underrated in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Ryan Johansen, and I still think he can grow a little bit more and maybe be one of the top centers in the NHL. At number 5 is John Klingberg of the Dallas Stars, and what a steal he was for Dallas. Drafted 131st overall, he's played in 303 games and has 42 goals and 172 assists for 214 points. So he only played in 300 games, so he kind of took longer to develop into an NHL ready player than a lot of guys did on this list, but he's quietly made himself into one of the best offensive defensemen in the NHL. He has fantastic size as well, so he's no slouch on the defensive end either, and he really is one of the defensemen that can just consistently put up 50 plus points. In his playoff career, he's only played in 13 games and has 1 goal and 3 assists for 4 points, but he really doesn't get talked about a lot, as when you think of offensive defensemen, obviously people talk about PK Subban, Erik Karlsson of course, and guys like that, but John Klingberg really has cemented himself as one of the best offensive defensemen in the NHL, and if he can just clean up the defensive game a little bit, he can really be a guy who could be in Norris Trophy talks in future seasons of his career. At 4 is Evgeny Kuznetsov, and what a season this guy had. He's another guy who took a little bit longer than a lot of other players in this draft to get in and get ready as an NHL full-timer, but drafted 26 overall, the Washington Capitals really did get a steal. He's played in 340 games and has 80 goals and 185 assists for 265 points. And in his playoff career, he's played in 63 games and has 23 goals and 28 assists for 51 total points. So he really is a guy that thrives in the playoffs, and we did see that this year as he led the playoffs in total points. In my opinion, he should have won the Conn Smythe for the playoff MVP, but obviously they had to give it to Alexander Ovechkin, since obviously if the Washington Capitals won the cup, I really couldn't see them giving it to anyone else. I did think Kuznetsov deserved it, but I really didn't see them giving it to him. And Evgeny Kuznetsov, a lot of people discredit him and say all his assists come off Ovechkin's goals, but I really do think if he was a guy being a number 1 option on a team, that he would thrive. I think he could be a number 1 center for a team and be the best player on a winning team. So Evgeny Kuznetsov this past season has really put himself into talks as one of the most elite centers in the NHL. At number 3 is Vladimir Tarasenko of the St. Louis Blues, and he really is one of the best pure goal scorers in the NHL. He's played in 421 games and has 178 goals and 172 assists for 350 total points. So obviously you guys can see that he is a pure sniper with more goals than assists over his career. He's played in 44 playoff games and has 22 goals and 10 assists for 32 points. So he's a guy that really doesn't crumble under pressure in the playoffs and really does play well under those situations. He kind of had a down season for Tarasenko standards this past year. A lot of people predicted him to get the most most goals in the NHL. But yeah, it was a little bit of a down year, and it really kind of was for the whole St. Louis Blues organization, as they just barely missed out on the playoffs. Tarasenko, a couple seasons ago, probably would have been higher up on this list, but I really do think that he can still be one of the best goal scorers in the NHL and be a guy who's competing for the Rocket Richard Trophy year in and year out. At number 2 is Tyler Seguin, drafted second overall by the Boston Bruins. Obviously, that draft pick came from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Phil Kessel trade. So, Toronto fans, you could have had Tyler Seguin on your team, but obviously Toronto's in a good position right now, so enough of that. 590 games played, 229 goals, 276 assists for 505 total points. He has really been a beast so far throughout his career. Obviously, he won that Stanley Cup with the Boston Bruins before being traded to the Dallas Stars, where he kind of is the number one guy. Him and Jamie Benn kind of share that title as the number one guy in Dallas. He's played in 49 playoff games and has 7 goals and 14 assists for 21 points, but obviously most of those playoff games did come with the Boston Bruins, and Dallas, in my opinion, was expected to be a Stanley Cup contender this past season, but they really did have a terrible season. Tyler Seguin didn't, though, as he had over 40 goals, so he's just been really consistent over his career, and I have high hopes for him. I really do hope he can really be one of the best players in the NHL next season, and hopefully the Dallas Stars can use that and get into the playoffs and try to make a push for the Stanley Cup in the next couple of seasons. And finally, at number 1, I have Taylor Hall, and if you were to ask me my thoughts on this before this season, I would probably put Tyler Seguin ahead of Hall, but Taylor Hall had an MVP caliber season, and he really probably is my pick to win the Hart Trophy. He drug the New Jersey Devils into the playoffs. He carried them on his back, playing with so many young players, and he had a breakout season. 529 games played, 191 goals, 283 assists for 474 total points, and in 5 playoff games, obviously all them playoff games coming this year with the Devils, 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points. So he played well, but obviously his team just was not good enough to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, who really was one of the powerhouses of the Eastern Conference. But Taylor Hall and the New Jersey Devils, I think, are going to be a problem in the Eastern Conference for many more years to come, and I'm really happy for Taylor Hall that he finally is in a situation to succeed. In my opinion, in Edmonton, I don't think he was just really not happy, and New Jersey really did get a steal of a player with that trade. Adam Larson for Taylor Hall, what a trade that was for the New Jersey Devils. So Taylor Hall didn't work out really well for the Oilers, but he certainly has had a fantastic career, and I really do think the best is yet to come from Taylor Hall. Now time for my favorite part of the video, seeing where players would go if there was a redraft using the rankings that I used. Taylor Hall would stay at number 1 to the Oilers, Seguin would stay second to the Boston Bruins, Vladimir Tarasenko would go third to the Florida Panthers. Could you imagine Barkov playing with Vladimir Tarasenko right now? Columbus Blue Jackets would get Evgeny Kuznetsov, the Islanders would get John Klingberg, and I'm sure they would really like that as they are still in desperate need of a defenseman. Ryan Johansen would go to the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jeff Skinner would still go to the Carolina Hurricanes, Cam Fowler would go to the Atlanta Thrashers, Mikael Granlund would still go to the Minnesota Wild, and Brendan Gallagher would be drafted by the New York Rangers. So that is going to wrap up the video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Remember, this is just my opinion. You don't have to go down bashing and hating in the comments. Just drop down what your top 10 would be, and we can compare and just have a normal conversation. So I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe for daily NHL content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.